do an intro and we're live. Okay, so I'm not as good at this as Jacob is, so I didn't have this intro to give us that time between to prepare and everything else. Uh, People will watch this later. Hopefully, they'll catch it. The first one. So, Dad, welcome to Peña Perspective. Da-da-da. Thank you. ¿Cómo estás?
Welcome, welcome to Peña Perspective.
That's it. And I got mine from you because you are the original De La Peña.
Yep.
So you asked me before the video why it was Peña Perspective and not De La Peña Perspective. And by the way, I've got a problem with the way you spelled it because that's not the way it's supposed to be. In your stream on your, yeah, it's D mayúscula L mayúscula. Okay, you taught
Yes,
me to spell that.
the correct way to spell it, which I never, it's too much of a pain in the ass. It's small d e, small l a, capital P E N A and N A. That's the
That
correct way in Spanish.
fuck
The
you. That's
original.
I never wrote that in my life with a small d and a small l.
But you know
I
why?
always
I know because it's a pain in the ass. Small d, E, small l, A, capital P, E, N, no, not N, N, A, N, A. So I just said, to hell with it. Spell it DELAPENA and just capitalize the beginning. And all together. That all the time that I spent in the States, I did it that way. But that was for my how can I say it, well-being, instead of forcing people. No, 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 that's not the correct way. If you see De La Hoya, De La Renta, all those people, they come, they do spell it the way I spelled it here. But anyway.
okay. Dad, do me a favor. Open up another link on your browser and open up the YouTube because you're in the StreamYard right now, and I want you to see something very special about YouTube, which I have discovered through Jacob. And at this very moment, they would like to meet you, and I would like you to chat with them. So if you can open up another tab on your browser, go into the YouTube.
You got to walk me through this because I'm not an expert at that.
Okay, how do you watch YouTube?
Okay, so I get.
So go to my channel on YouTube, and on my channel you should see this broadcast live right now. Because when you get onto the YouTube, you'll be able to get into the chat. And in the
Okay.
chat right now, and I don't know how to. There we go. Cool. I'm getting a hang of this. Jacob always does this part. I usually don't do this. So we have people in the chat. It's not just you and me lost and talking into the ether. Mud Rabbit, thank you very much. Welcome. She lives in South Florida. Okay. She was married for 32 years and she knows much more than I ever dreamed I could possibly know. All the rabbit holes that I've gone into that you think I'm crazy for, Mud Rabbit follows along and says, yeah, here's the route. Let me show you a little bit further. Mud Rabbit's freaking awesome. We also have Jerry Lahane. So he's also from Jacobs. So he's also on the chat. And so they're both here listening to us. So thank you very much for showing up, everyone. And that's the beauty of YouTube, Dad. Thank you very much and welcome. Jerry says that your volume is a bit too low, so if you can turn that up a little bit, maybe.
Let me move my.
Sorry, I'm
is
actually waiting for him to do that, and I'm reading the comment. So, Mud Rabbit, thank you. Yes, that's what I plan on doing. What Dad and I are trying to do is set up a weekly show, just like I do with Jake. Um, oh, Jerry's, ooh, yeah, definitely. So you guys are gonna have to bring my dad up to speed on all this stuff because, um,
I-
well,
I'm a
Dad's
newcomer.
focused on business. Sorry, go ahead, Dad.
I don't I don't know how to run this stuff, so you have to walk me through it. Thank you for the
Okay, so
patience.
what you're doing is you're being pretty in front of the camera right now. I
Okay.
happen to be seeing the chat that's on the YouTube chat. Okay, so that's why I asked you to watch it on YouTube, because if you can get into the chat on that YouTube, you would see that Mud Rabbit and Jerry were wishing you hello because I told them about you. Now, one of Jerry's questions was, or actually statements, is that we have found life on Mars. My question to Jerry would then be, what kind of life have we found, and on which realm? Because with Mud Rabbit, she just got through moderating the channel with Jacob that I got off with him, and we were down to talking about chakras and the fourth dimensional realities and that sort of thing. That's the level of conversations that I have over on Jacob's channel and the people that are following me and that sort of thing. My conversations with you are more about, globalization, economics, how the business runs, and what we can see from different perspectives around the world economically, because you're much more grounded and into what needs to get done to get things done. So finding that happy medium between those two, I'm sure Mud Rabbit will help me get to the middle of that. But we can do this on a weekly basis, which I hope to and I want to, because there's a lot of knowledge to be
I
gained
tell you what
from
I
this.
need to do. I need to get something else besides a telephone because I know it's
Okay.
not working. Now it's calling that I have it connected to the power line and I
Okay.
have a battery because my phone won't hold the battery at all. So I have to keep an auxiliary battery to run my telephone.
Yeah.
And the battery is starting to get low, so I connected it to the source, to the electric source, and
Yeah.
it's telling me that my battery on my phone is running low. I might be losing you, but it's my equipment. But anyway, I wanted to start touching base with you and your friends and see what we can come up with. I think something interesting will be all the cultural differences between the three countries that you have experienced. That brings you into another, how can I say it, a very special being because you have experience living in the Mexican culture, in the American culture, in the Brazilian culture, and all the traveling that you did gives you a lot of experience in life. Now you're getting to be 50, but you learned that when you were young. uh,
I've wasted
all the,
20 years trying to have life catch up. You're a
uh,
badass. I mean, all that I did with you, man. I mean, to be honest with you, all that shit
uh,
you did,
and
I
what
just
I
tagged along with your reality. You were the guy who finished paying his house by 24 because he hustled, sold paint, sold real estate, sold whatever he needed to do. You were the guy that, decided to go to the States and, you know, you made things happen because you always, part of the reason for my book and what I always talk about is that you have to visualize something to be able to see it, eventually create it, and then build your way to that. And I always explain to people, you always took these huge steps, and Mom and I would build the steps underneath your feet. And so it taught us to focus that energy. When all of us were focused in one direction, great things happened.
most of the time I went against the grain, which at some time I thought, am I doing all this stuff right? Or am I really too much of a an outcast, I don't know, a weirdo, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to put on it. But I was so convinced that I like what I was doing. Most of the time, your mother didn't like that.
Okay.
Um,
No, she did not.
Judy Burst died, and something that Aro and Rustin told me, because I mentioned that Judy was a great human being. I would always have a good memory of her. Uh, and
Yeah, I'll
Rustin
share
told
this with Rustin later on. Judy was a great woman. For anyone in the chat, that's another story we won't necessarily get into now.
you tell me what we can talk about. But anyway,
No, that's okay. But nobody knows what you're talking about, just you and me, and I understand that. But the things that RO and Rustin helped you focus on now with that, because we remember the things, the times that we spent with them, and the things that we did, the things that we learned, the impact that they had on our lives, how their perspective changed who
I,
we are.
I can say to your audience or to your people is that,
Or
um,
to me.
or to you, that I always went somewhat against the grain, pretty much of your perspective now. You're going against society, the majority of them. I'm not saying you're right or
How were you
wrong.
going against the grain back then? Because you went where the success was. You saw rich people, you saw what they were doing, and you did the same thing. You got in the same circles, and you tried to do the best that you could to be the best that you could be. That's what I saw from you. That's what you taught me.
What, what I like what you said, it was that you have to dream the opportunities. The opportunities you don't read about them. You dream, you think about them, and the more you think about them, the more. And that's called attitude in life. If you have, uh, putting plain English, I guess is now they call it half full, half empty, so to speak. And what do you do with that? That's what makes successful people or not successful people. Um, and that's how I can attribute it to you know hell, all the stuff that that happened. It was I was a gambler in life, I guess I could say that. Most of the time I won, sometimes I lost. Remember when they told me you already lost one of your treasures? You just have to decide which one you want to lose. And I said, screw
Oh
you,
God, you're
guys.
talking about the okay. Now this is a story that I really want Mud Rabbit, especially because she knows me, and Jerry will be interested in this because these are the two people that are here today. So, but also this for to be saved for posterity, because I was what 10, and I was along with you, and you were talking to the manager of the Jeep distributor in Mexico City. And this is the same guy that told us that, life will forgive you everything until you're 30. And after that, it'll charge you double. I remember you telling me that time after time later on. And I remember when that old man, he was 63 at the time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, when he was talking to you. He was close to retirement and that sort of thing. And along with that life forgives you everything until 30, he also gave you the gem that you're about to spill. So, yeah, give us that one as well, because that's a great story.
The story is that I lost, but not due to my bad judgment. I lost when the government decided to nationalize the banks and all that. And the guy that remember told me I cannot pay my debt in the States because I owe huge amount of money. Like at that time, $300,000 is a lot of money, you know, 40 years ago. And I was only 30 years old by then, or 29 years old somewhere.
Hey, Pop,
And
read the comment. Read the
huh,
comment. Read the comment.
taught him to move the laptop closer to him. Okay.
Yeah, because the sound is a bit low. That's the whole thing. They're
Okay.
having trouble hearing you and they want to hear you.
Okay. I'm moving it closer. Sorry for this amateur guy, but anyway.
No, that's okay. This is our first, and this is also my first.
This is my first time, but I love, talking to other people about our lives because, anyway, to continue with my story, I decided, you know what? I mortgaged my home, which we was paid in full at age 30.
Twice, but that's another story. However, you said this wasn't your fault, and you're absolutely correct. Because what happened in 1982, what happened in 1982 was a George Soros funded destruction of the pound sterling, the British pound sterling. His objective of taking down the British bank in 1982 is what basically fucked up everything throughout Latin America and consequently our reality, because we were divided between a mortgage in the United States and equipment in Mexico. Okay, so
That
you had paid off the house, then you mortgaged a house that you had already paid off to buy equipment because you couldn't mortgage the equipment. You took it to Mexico and you used the house. The equipment paid for the house, the mortgage. Again,
I,
you
I,
mortgaged it a second time, and you did
I
that three times.
lots and the land that I had in order to buy the equipment. I bought 4 pieces of equipment, which it was almost $300,000 back then, which was a huge amount of money. And I took it to Mexico, and I did very well until the peso devalued, and then it went
How
sky
much?
high.
This is something that the others, for example, I remember the peso was 25 pesos to the dollar, and then after the devaluation, it was 125 pesos to the dollar.
To one,
What? Repeat.
150 to one, the exchange rate. 150 to one.
From 25 to 150.
And then it was chaos back then. And then they decided to nationalize the banks. And if you had any dollars in your account, they just gave you Mexican pesos, the value of Mexican pesos.
At whatever exchange rate they decided to give you.
At 70 to 1 instead of 150 to 1.
Oh my
So
God.
they actually robbed money from all the people that had money in the bank and had dollars. So anyway, when I told this Jewish guy, he says, look, I'm in a bind because I cannot rent my equipment because of the recession in Mexico. I have to pay back. I'm talking 82, 25, $3,000.
You're talking about Clarion?
No, it has nothing to do
Oh,
with
okay.
it.
Another
And
one. Okay, sorry.
You already lost. Either your real estate in the States or the machinery in Mexico. You just have to decide which one you want to keep. And when the guy told me that, I said, you're full of shit because it's not your money. It's easy for you to say you already lost one of your children. You decide whether you want to lose Mary or keep George, so to speak. And I said, no, screw you. I'm going to try to save both of them.
I remember that. And you lost both.
Then 2 years later, at the end of 2 years after that, I ended up losing both of those.
No, hold on. It was a big struggle. I mean, we have an entire history of leather collectibles that tried to save us in the middle of that. Because in the middle of that, you still tried to get money out of Mexico. Because even though the machines weren't renting as much, they were still renting. We still had bills we had to pay in the U.S. And so we had to get that dollars out somehow. So what we did is you manufactured products and took them to the U.S. And we opened up a shop in Mexico to try and get one exchange to another somehow.
I said, I remember, I don't know if you remember, you were too young back then. You were only 10 years old. But
I remember all that shit, man. I mean, you think I was, but I was there.
To American, Canadian people, tourists that they were coming to Mexico, but it was dirt cheap to come to Mexico back then. for the exchange rate was 150 to $1. So, and inflation rate in Mexico hadn't keep up with that devaluation rate. So it was very extremely cheap. To say, to give an example, a hotel room would cost you 25 bucks instead of 150 bucks.
I remember those signs because God, we used to go through so many Ramada Inns and Sheratons and everything else.
In a halfway decent hotel. I mean, it was like, oh my God. Anyway, I ended up losing the two of those things. It took me 2 years later, but I ended up losing it.
Yeah, the comment was also talking about the Lira in Lebanon, because Mud Rabbit was also aware when that happened back in Lebanon. Do you remember the Lira in Lebanon? I thought the Lira was Italian.
Are you talking to Mud Rabbit or to me?
I'm talking to you. Do you
Oh,
remember? I thought that the Lira was Italian.
yeah, La Lira, Lira, it was Italian, yes.
So why does Lebanon use a Lira?
Don't know why.
That would
I
be
don't know.
interesting. Well,
Uh,
actually, Lebanon would be one of the biggest traders with.
with
Oh,
Italy?
okay, my bad. See, that's what I'm talking about. Mud Rabbit knows everything. I mean, this woman is just freaking brilliant. Anytime that I have a question or a doubt, and you know that I don't have that many, Mud Rabbit comes in with the answer. So yeah, thank you, Mud Rabbit. She's great. She always keeps me on my toes, and she's always got topics to talk about as well.
What was the reason? I don't know. I don't know why Lebanon had the leader.
No, but it happened at the same time and for the same reason. And that's the whole thing. So you focused on the fact that it happened to you in Mexico, between Mexico and the US. The problem is that that really fucked up my life because we had to turn over the keys to the house to the bank, okay, because of George Soros's fucking playing around bullshit.
They
So I
stole
looked into it.
they stole money from the bank from us, from not just from me, from a lot of people.
Everybody.
How did they steal money from us? Just by giving us pesos instead of dollars. I had $40,000 on the account in Banpais. Banpais, I don't know if you remember Banpais.
Yeah, I
But anyway,
remember.
and all of a sudden, Banpais says, well, due to the nationalizing of the banks are owned by the government anymore now. And the rule is we're going to give you the dollars that you have, the $42,000. Now they're going to give you at 70 to 1. And uh, when you wanted to buy dollars on the black market, they would sell them to you 150, 160 to 1. So they actually stole 50% of the dollars that you had.
They pocketed the cash. The government needed money, and so they pocketed in the exchange rate. They screwed everybody over, and that was a real lesson to me on how real life is. Because man, you can't depend on fuck all. Government will take. Because then we can also go down the rabbit hole of bis abuelita. I mean, when my great grandmother, when Beast got her inheritance from my bisabuelo whenever he passed away, they had the house and the money there in Calle Ocho. You told me a story to where they put the money in the bank and simply the bank seized the funds. They lost all the money or something similar to that. That I'm a bit too young to remember the details, which is why I'm curious.
They, they, the devaluation ate their money. It's like you put $100 in the bank, and all of a sudden the dollar goes to loses the value instead of being. What can I say? Give you an honest example. I'm trying to think of something would be similar. They lost over half of the value, just like I did on the Bampais, but years later. That was like
They'll just write everything off.
10, 12 years before my time. of losing money. But anyway, so I
But
came up
one
with
the one question I have to you, because I've been noticing this very. Go ahead.
in order to save the house and the land that I had mortgage, I decided I have to come up with dollars to pay the U.S. banks. So I decided they wouldn't sell me but $500 to leave the country. And I thought, how am I going to do $3,000 a month? So I said, guess what? I'm going to import leather. I'm going to have it made into, turn the leather into
Why
briefcases.
did we choose leather? You wanted to import something that was made in Mexico. But I remember when you were talking to mom and you're going, yeah, I tried to import this, but you know what? In Hong Kong, it's made cheaper. And I tried to import this, but they make it cheaper in Vietnam. Even the stuff that the Indians make with the little weave baskets and everything else, I found out that they make the same thing in Vietnam for a lot cheaper. So what can we do here? I remember you had that discussion back in 82, 83. I was
Yeah,
there, remember. I was part of all that shit. I didn't have a reality other than yours. So I remember that discussion.
yeah.
And that's why we chose leather, because that's something at that time that nobody else could do. So you always have to find that niche where you don't compete with everybody else.
High value. For instance, uh, uh, a leather jacket. When I was doing, I told you the story. Back in the '81, Walmart was is not the conglomerate that is now. I mean, it had like 600 stores or 400 stores. Now they're in the thousands of stores all over the U.S. Uh,
We could say that they control commerce in the US and
I
in many
remember
parts of the globe.
I remember going to Arkansas in Bentonsville or wherever the headquarters of Walmart. The headquarters still in the same city in Arkansas. And one of the buyers, after going through all this time to get an appointment, he told me, how much you sell these jackets for, leather jackets? And I said, at that time, $25. You buy 100 or more. And he told me,
There you go.
I will always remember, where do you steal the cows from to get the leather so cheap? And I thought, well, I'll give them to you for $25 each leather jacket. And I
Genuine
went to
leather. I still remember the smell. I mean, I love that business.
they gave me an order only for 12 jackets per store. And
Okay.
I was pushing for them to buy 25 jackets per store instead of 12.
How many
And
stores?
the purchaser, no, only 12. Okay, so here's my order, 12 jackets per store, and they had like 700 stores or 690 or something, close to 700 stores at that
Yeah,
time.
and you wanted 25.
And I thought, uh-oh, I'm broke. I cannot sell, I cannot make, figure out 600 stores times 12. That's 7,000 some jackets. I, it was unbelievable. I thought, I cannot do it. I'm happy when I found out how many stores they had, that I had to sell 12 jackets to 600 some stores. I thought almost 700 stores, and I thought, oh, I'm not so happy anymore. That's a lot of money, and they pay you in 30, 90 days. Well, I can borrow money from a bank and make the jackets, but who the hell is going to make me the 7,000 jackets in Mexico? So I went back and I thought, sorry, I cannot deliver the that's the story of wanting much to sell a lot, and then you find out that you cannot fulfill it. You cannot. There's a fine line there too. Anyway, that's a story. That's another story. But yeah, you live through all this economic up and down. Thank God there was more up than down, but anyway, there were some downs.
You always found a way to push things up because I mean, to be honest with you, the best parts of my life were always with you because you were born in the year of the dragon. You're a Pisces. You're a dreamer. I was born on practically on your birthday, and so oh, okay. Yeah, actually, the volume levels there. I figured. I saw that there was a thing on there. He was at 50%, so I apologize. That was my fault. My bad. I'm also trying to learn this stuff. Jacob always did it on his channel, so this is the first time on mine. Welcome everybody to the alpha. We'll have beta testing later on, I guess, or this is beta testing. Anyway, we're figuring it out. People can hear you better, and it was my fault, not yours. So continue with your story, Dad.
Yeah. Sorry if it was my volume. I don't know, but
No,
anyway, I'm trying to.
it was my settings on the StreamYard for you, and I didn't know how to mess with that because I never had to mess with it before. So all this is a test. If you think it's new for you, it's just as new for me.
There's always a first time.
Hey, Jake's been doing this for 3.5 months. He's gotten pretty good at it. So if I start taking off, maybe I'll learn. Maybe you'll
Say hi,
learn. Maybe we'll do what?
say hi to Jake for me.
I will do so next time we're on next week, most likely. Yeah, Mud Rabbit, it's a crash course, and that's what life is like. When Dad, sorry, Dad, you haven't gotten into the chat yet, so I'll bring it online for you. Um, First of all, about the volume, it was my problem, not yours. I adjusted it on the StreamYard, and so you're 100%. They no longer have a problem. So I'm sorry, I didn't know that. That was my dude. And then we got Mud Rabbit's comment about a crash course in doing this, the live streaming and the StreamYard and that sort of stuff. StreamYard, actually, it was Leo that told Jacob about it. Leo is somebody who's been doing this for like 13 years. He's the guy that I'm going to be getting on to the webinars with about materializing the universe. So is your universe in your way? Is your perception of reality in your way? And you are one of the people that taught me what I'm going to be trying to teach people in the webinar with Leo, because you taught me about what building your own reality. You had a vision and you went after it, and you had to know the steps that you had to take. And so, like in my book, as I'm trying to finish writing, you have this goal and this perspective, and you build the steps backwards to be able to reach that. And eventually, you get to the steps that get to where you are today and the steps that you need to take tomorrow for you to reach that goal that you want to attain. That's what you taught me. And so, I see that in all the things that you've been doing, these businesses. You didn't. You went for leather because it was worth more money. I remember Carol's Instant Image. Holy shit, you were at the peak of technology at that time. I mean, describe that to the audience because they don't know what Carol's Instant Image is. Now it will seem basic, but we'll then tell them what year that was. Tell them what Carol's Instant Image was.
1979.
I said, tell them the year later, not immediately, but okay. 1979, Carol's Instant Image.
I met this guy in Kokomo, Indiana.
I remember going there.
He was he was he was working at Delco Electronics. He was a off the wall guy, always like that.
I love this freaking workshop. I love that guy. He was my kind of inventor, kind of maniac.
And at that time, if you look back in history, 70 something, that's where the Apple computers, Macintosh didn't exist. It was a small, very little computer.
I remember you bought the SD systems. I remember the 8-inch floppy fucking discs.
That was later on. That was later on when I worked with the U.S. Embassy to bring them computers to Mexico. But anyway, the instant image, it was this camera would take your photo and print it out in X's and zeros. Remember that?
I remember
Compared
that.
to dots and dots, when you were printing, it was X's and zeros. I forgot what they call that, the name, but anyway, that's how he printed out X's and
I
zeros.
think that's a daisy chain printer, but I'm sure Mud Rabbit will correct me because she knows
Probably
everything.
Private can help us decipher. There's a special name for that, and it wasn't dotted. It was X and
One of
zero.
the questions is binary.
Anyway, and
But anyway,
it would
yeah, I remember this handy Radio Shack. We got some stuff there all the time in 1980. That was fun.
this was in the 78 more or less in that era, and you would get that printing and put it on a T-shirt, a black and white only. It wasn't color. It was black and white.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
I decided to bring one to Oklahoma, and I talked to the Montgomery Wards people, and they loved it. And they said, "I want your machine. Yes, I'll give you the space, but I want if you're gonna put it, you're gonna have to put it on our 3 stores in Oklahoma City because we cannot just have it in one and not in the other two. So we had to put it
So that's why we were in a three. Okay, I was always
across
impressed because I
10.
spent that time in Penn Square. We had one, but I didn't spend too much time. I was there at Crossroads all the time.
You were only 7 years old.
Yeah, I was still fucking there. I lost $100. You remember when the guy gave me the change and I went to actually fix one of the shirts, the posters that we were supposed to do. And when I went back to get the bill, somebody had already swiped it. Yeah, you had a serious fight with me. I went
And I,
out there to get people in the middle,
I
try and call in grandmothers to get the picture with their grandkids. You taught me that.
Christmas, I told you, hey, he was little blondie, young little kid, you, and I said, go talk to the people and tell them, hey, look, you can have your poster, do your Christmas poster with the photographs of your grandkids, or send it to grandma and grandpa. If, blah 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 blah.
Marketing. Yeah, dad taught me marketing at 7. Okay, because when I was at Montgomery Wards and I was bored, I'd go next door, and that's how I know the Radio Shack. Mud Rabbit had the answer. So I went to the Radio Shack, and I also went over. They had those Ginsu knives. Okay, and so I would listen to those guys. Remember, they had the core that took out the core of the apples, and they also peeled the oranges. That's it. And it was all that little equipment that they did. And I listened to their spiel time after time because they have it. 5 minutes, somebody's in front of there and they walk off. And I was still there because I was bored and I was watching. And another customer would come up and they'd have the exact same speech. So after about a week and a half, I went in there and I started doing their speech for them. And they just sit back and let me do their entire spiel. Yeah, the marketing and everything else, it was you, but it was the fact that I didn't have that normal childhood. I was 7. I wasn't working, but I was there. I was making the change. I was ironing the shirts. I was helping taking the pictures. I was pulling people in with marketing, and I was in that environment, that work environment, as long as you guys were. And I remember the mall closed at 10, but we'd be out at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Hey, it's dinner time. If it wasn't Chick-fil-A and Orange Julius.
I remember that.
Oh, that was my fun.
Going
Yeah,
back in
definitely. That's Jerry Lehane telling us about round up some business, kiddo. Yeah, you did that. You told me, go out there and call people, and talk about this, the parents with the kids. And I was into it. I would, come on in. Oh, yeah, you got your grandkids. Put their picture on a photo for you and put your picture on a shirt for them so that they can take it to school. Oh, and this is your daughter-in-law. You can put her on a most wanted poster. You can iron her photo on there.
But I still have posters printed with your photo when you were only
You
7
still
or
have a Frisbee with my photo. I want that Frisbee.
somewhere. I want to send that. I want to send a T-shirt that I have with your photo. I don't know. I might go look for it and I can show it to you. But anyway, if not some other time. But I do have those. I'm a pack rat.
Hold on. Now we got Jerry Lehane going in here pitching, and I got to pitch, and I got to tell my future mod about pitching this because
Look at all my gray, Mikey.
okay, now I'm definitely pitching because my dad taught me well. So yeah, I established a new PayPal account, not for this channel, but because I've got something else that's going on that only pays through PayPal, and so I established it today. But I established it under the email of the Pena Perspective because we also have somebody on Jake's channel that I helped, and she wanted to donate, and I had no way for her to be able to donate. So I established a PayPal, and it's associated to the email of this channel. So Mud Rabbit, I need to head over to Facebook and make you a mod. How do I do that? All righty. You're modding another channel, Mud Rabbit. I apologize to force you on this. Let me know, Jerry, if you would like it. I can make you a mod as well. And yes, thank you, Mud Rabbit. She's always on top of things. Maybe I can put it. I need to put it as the description on my page and that information that I put below the videos. All right. So yes, there. What do you mean, Jerry? You don't want to be a mod? You'll just be able to say whatever you can, and I can't kick you off the channel. That's what it means, man. Just because I'm in the mood and you guys are actually listening tonight, and I thank you very much for your patronage. You're both mods. Everybody gets a car. Welcome to my channel. Yeah, Dad, you and I are going to be doing this more frequently because there is information that needs to get out there. I know Mud Rabbit and Jerry are enjoying and following along, definitely. But this will be a constant thing because eventually people will watch this. I'm going to share this out and everything else, and we're going to establish this as a weekly thing because there's a lot of information. Why do I bring this up, especially at this time? Because one of the things that I wanted to mention before was all the things that you're talking about, what happened to Mexico in '82. And I was mentioning that it was the fact that George Soros wanted to take down the pound sterling. The problem is the next objective, his ultimate objective in life, was to take down the US dollar. And guess what? The United States is looking a lot like the third world country that Mexico was back in '82. And what I want people to understand is the things that we went through in Mexico, because they may be coming to your town soon. For example, Mud Rabbit mentioned in the other chat that we had before, the chicken went up 25%. Used cars have gone up 40% in the United States. That's the way Brazilians used to store their value. So the United States is starting to face what we used to face in Latin America of hyperinflation and political instability, and all the things of not having a reserve currency to maintain your interest rates low and everything stable. So that's one of the focuses that I want with our conversations, is to help people prepare. So yes, these things happen, But what did we do to overcome those barriers? Because we did. It wasn't easy and it took a long time, but we did. And how can others overcome the barriers that are coming that they don't even see yet? But because we've seen that wave, we recognize that motherfucker and it's going to hurt. Or at least I do. The United States today is showing inflation rates that they haven't seen in more than 50 years. They're the type of inflation rates that remind me of Brazil and Mexico on normal days of 15, 20% inflation.
I hope.
Mud Rabbit, yeah, we're way ahead of you. We both actually, Dad hasn't finished his yet. He still needs to finish it, but he finished the plant and that sort of stuff. But yes, that's one of the things that we learned, and that's why I'm not in debt either. Yes, Jerry, my dad has a lot of fucking stories. If you guys think I have stories over on Jacob's channel, I ain't got shit compared to this man. All right. So we will be doing this on a constant basis, and you will be hearing more from Mr. De La Peña, the creator of the name itself. Because my grandfather called himself Peña, and that's why my dad asked me, why Peña perspective and not De La Peña perspective? Because he had a thing with just Peña. It's De La Peña. And you always taught me De mayúscula, L mayúscula, everything uppercase. Now you go and spell it with this lowercase letter. It's an insult to me. I'm having to change my kid's birth certificate so it will show big D and big L.
Don't change it. Keep it the way we always.
No, because it's not the same as mine, and it's not the same as for him to get the passport and all his documents looking the same. You actually have to pay attention to those details. And because I didn't back in the day, 15, 17 years ago, because I said, whatever, leave it like that. No big deal. Let's not bother anybody. Now they're going, wait, but his last name doesn't match your last name. Wait, what do you mean? It's the same. No, but his is small d and yours is big D. So I have to get like a birth certificate of.
Tiago's de la Peña is small d?
That they actually put it together. It's not that it's a small d, that they put one word, de la Peña, everything together. So it's a battle of getting it out, and whenever they spread it apart, then they put it just like I always demand it. De mayúscula, L mayúscula, P mayúscula.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah, well, you still got it spelled as a small d and L, small L. So next time you're on my channel, I would ask you for freaking please put the big D and the big L there.
Okay.
Because that's your name.
I will do that.
Okay. But the thing that stands out is the Peña, which is why it's Peña perspective. Okay, now, you had the thing with Buelito because he was just Salvador Peña. He kept it simple as a marketing thing, I guess. You were the one who added.
No, because the true last name of us is De La Peña.
Where did you find that out, and why did my grandfather make it Peñaso?
Well, the grandfather, my father's father, he didn't want to put De La Peña on him. He just saw his Peña, too much of a hassle. But his father, or my father's grandfather, his last name, he spelled it Manuel de la Peña y Rojas.
Y Rojas, que era el nombre de la mamá, his mother's name.
Manuel de la Peña y Rojas. El apellido era y Rojas.
Entonces, de la Peña era el nombre.
Y el apellido era Manuel de la Peña, era el apellido del padre. Y después ya nada más se le pusieron Peña. Esa es la razón por la cual.
Sí, pero tú you got it back to De La Peña, and so that stuck. And that was sorry. Sorry, Dad, I apologize. Um,
Sorry.
we do this, Jerry. We started going off into Spanish, and so we completely
Sorry,
we
sorry,
did that. Growing up in Mexico and in the U.S., we did the same thing. So I apologize, Jerry. Go ahead, Dad.
Sorry, do you want to translate, Mikey?
You go ahead and say everything you said, but you were talking about the great grand. Actually, you tell
Well,
the story about the grandfather in English because I got to go to the restroom real quick.
that's right. Going back in history, in the ancestry, I found out that the true last name is De La Peña, not Peña. And from my father and my grandfather, they dropped the De La and they just kept the Peña. The same way with a grandmother's last name, it was Rizzo with double Z, ZZO, instead of just one Z. Instead of Rizzo, they put and they just drop one Z. But the true last name Italian is Rizzo. Anyway, that's the ancestry. So I guess I'll wait.
We were talking about De La Peña, and you go and put Rizzo in there. So let's tell everybody, where is Rizzo from?
Because in all the Latin cultures, you keep your father's name and your mother's name.
Yeah.
Just
So Rizzo is in there as the mother's last name. But where is the Rizzo from?
Italian.
What part of Italy, my friend? I know Italian. You speak Italian. Con tu das manos.
And also the original Rizzo, when the great grandfather came to Mexico in the
What part of
1812,
Italy was he from?
they wrote the last name with double ZZ.
Where were they from?
From Sicilia, Palermo.
Palermo. God, there you go. Okay. So next part is Peña, and actually, it would actually be spelled. It's a tilde. So, trying to get that on there. All right. So that's a tilde. And what is the meaning of Peña? I always translate it as cliff, the summit,
the rock.
The rock. Okay. I always thought of it like a peñasco, like the cliff at the top of the rock.
It's a rock. It's a
rock itself.
The rock itself. De la peña. The peña. It's a stone, a rock.
Big mountain, wouldn't it be?
Somewhere.
Or
like
just
that.
a boulder.
It doesn't have to be.
So if you see a boulder on the beach that's like maybe 3 meters tall, you'll say, "Yeah, it's una peña."
Yeah.
Really?
A rock?
Well, that blows my mind. I always thought it was like the top of a mountain or something else, like looking out from the top and looking down like an eagle. You just blew my mind. Now I'm just a rock. My entire channel just got blown because it's my objective is Peña perspective is the view from the top.
It's a tall stone, but relatively big, and that's what it's called, of the stone. I don't know how to do what. I don't know what to do that. Peak.
Sorry, he said I don't know how to do tilde. Que es peña en vez de leña. But he said it's rock, cliff. Yeah, that's the way I always translate it. Exactly. He's also got as point and as a peak, which is what I had translated as, which is the reason my channel is the way it is, because it's the perspective from the peak, from getting there, because Dad took me there. And I'm able to see that and try to show others how to get there. Let's see. Oh, I'm a rock. Okay. Mothers of invention, life imitating art. Yeah, possibly. That's got so many meanings. We'll have to get into that and into another one. But still, today, it's good. Jerry, thank you. Mud Rabbit, thank you. Y'all showed up and I had no idea. And this is just too cool. This is our very first show. Dad, we're coming up on an hour. How you doing?
I'm fine. If you want
Okay.
to cut off, that's fine. If you want to continue, that's fine.
No, looking it up online. So about the name, yeah.
It's probably it's a stone, but it's more of a cliff. It's a tall stone, not just any stone.
Yeah, because that's what I had looked it up, and that's what I'd found, and everything else. Um, yeah,
You're lucky to have
absolutely,
him
Jerry.
around. You're lucky to
Yeah,
have him around. That's me.
yeah, I'm lucky to have you around. Absolutely. You're an awesome man, and you taught me a lot, and I hope someday I might be able to reach 10% of what you did.
In two different countries.
But that was the benefit. You were the one that made the connection. Today, people do that with the internet. Oh, sorry. This is what Mud Rabbit was talking about. This is evidently a song. It's a Frank Zappa song, Mothers of Invention Help, I'm a Rock. That is the name of a song that Mud Rabbit would recommend us look into. And if Mud Rabbit recommends it, I freaking guarantee you that it's going to mean something. Just like her Revelations 3:10 that she gave me on the last one. So thank you, Mud Rabbit. Always on the ball. But yeah, we've gone over the name today and some kind of history and things on how to get out of a bad recession. Getting into that, remember, I studied economics and you pushed me in that direction. I learned all the stuff that I needed about that. I mean, I remember I wanted to be a stockbroker, so I learned that shit. Which is why I learned about how 82 happened, because that was a watershed moment for all of us. It was a wake up moment of things were going nice, things were going stable, things were steady. The machines were being rented. They were paying off the mortgage. We had been able to leverage the things that we needed to do, and everything was running smoothly. And then all of a sudden, the floor went out from everything, and everything came down to the ground. The only thing that really mattered was what you need to survive. Like the guy at the Jeep plant told you, choose one. He wasn't telling you to no, choose one that you'll be able to build around that, and that will survive, and that you can do. But you have to choose one. You tried to do both, you lost both. And I want people to try and understand that I see the U.S. going into a very similar situation now, and people need to be prepared.
Mikey, I hope Mud Rabbit and your friends are listening to this. Remember when I told you about the U.S. sending all the manufacturing capability to the Chinese?
You told me that back in the 80s. Why are we giving everything on a silver platter? You used to tell me that when you were doing the Indonesian embassy.
Remember? And I told you when Mark and Cynthia says, "Oh, but we want it cheaper, and if we can get it cheaper in China or in Japan or whatever, Korea, power to them." And I said, "No, not power to them. We're giving the manufacturing capabilities to the Chinese in a silver platter.
We're teaching them how to do it. They couldn't do any of that shit. We took the plants there. We taught them how to do that. We gave them the technology. We gave them the jobs, and we ended up giving them the money. So what the fuck?
The U.S., France, Germany, Italy, England, everybody's giving the manufacturing facilities to the Chinese because the labor is cheap. But one of these days, and I told you,
It's
I
going
don't
to
know if you
bite you
remember,
in the ass.
the next World War is not going to be with missiles. It's going to be fought with money. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
and guess what? But hold on. For this, you and I, you are exactly on the same page as I am. However, Mud Rabbit just made a comment that goes right along with what I know to be true. So now that you're reading this, yeah, the Chinese mistake will hurt us long term. And that's exactly what you told me 30, 40 years ago that was going to happen. That's what Trump told us was going to happen 40 years ago. And Mud Rabbit is now reminding us that soon everything will be obsolete, and we didn't tell him about that. So everything will be obsolete eventually. She's saying that they're getting old technology. My problem is that, for example, Marfugal was live about 2 hours ago. I was watching part of it.
Look,
And
I'm looking at a picture that I bought from the Chinese embassy in Mexico in the 72, 73, right
the
around when you
seashells, the one made out of the seashells,
exactly
the
with
swans flying over the valley with the deep, the big pagodas. Show that, everybody. That is a beautiful fucking work of art. I remember that, and we took care of that in every fucking move that we made. You can't see that very well, but there are Chinese. There's Chinese writing on it, and there's swans flying over mountains that have pagodas on them. That is very beautiful. We'll have to actually take a picture of that and share it to the channel one of these days, as well as the angel that was there as well.
the story behind that is that when I bought that picture, they told me in the 70s it's $350, and it took 15 days for them to deliver that picture to me after I paid for it, because they have to have all these signatures. Like 10 people had to approve the sale. And
because something was leaving China.
How backward these guys are. What do you mean 10 guys have to okay the sale and they have to sign it and blah, 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 blah. I mean, just pay for it and take your picture and run with it after you pay for it. Oh, no, it has to be approved by all these people. That was in the 70s.
And it had to be approved by the CCP.
And now, 40 years later, when I heard the news that the Chinese had landed in Mars.
Mars? Hey, guess what? The Chinese have their own space station, and the Russians are saying that the International Space Station has cracks, and the Russians will be leaving by 2025. So basically, the only people in space after 2025 will be the Chinese.
Well, so you tell me, and I predict sometimes that the highest purchasing power in the world will be the Chinese middle class.
It will be.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what Man, I hate red tape.
Sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't read that, so I apologize. I was also putting that up there for future visualizations of the video. They don't necessarily have the live chat going on, so I can actually bring that on, and it becomes part of the video. So it's Mud Rabbit and Jerry Lehane are registered forever as part of this video because, yes, it is part of the interaction, and that's absolutely great. Now, hold on. We've got Jerry Lehane saying Mars, yes, this year. And then we got Mud Rabbit saying, did we meet them there when they landed? Because Mud Rabbit is along with me on the idea that we have portals and we've already been on Mars and there's a colony on Mars. And so when China finally got there, we just came out of the doors of our colonies down there and say, hey, welcome, dumbasses, you're late. And then we've got Jerry saying now, NASA meeting ESA is going to the moon with Artemis. So that's whole other realms whenever we start talking about space travel and everything else, because we've got the three-dimensional rockets. Oh, well, speaking of three-dimensional rockets, tell them about Florida, because it took us 2 different tries when we were there. Mud Rabbit is in Florida, so she'll be able to recognize this. When we took Hector Feria's kids to Disney World, and you got a condominium
to Orlando.
Yeah, we went to Orlando.
And I heard on the radio.
No, we didn't go to Orlando. That was the first time that I remembered that it wasn't, or it's Kissimmee. The place we were at is in Kissimmee.
Correct. That the lodge or the apartments were in Kissimmee. And
Disney World is too.
And I heard on the news that there was going to be a takeoff. Well, I forgot what the rocket. Help me. I forgot the name. It was at Atlantis. I don't know which one it was. But anyway,
you're talking about the space shuttle.
The space shuttle, but the name of the space shuttle, I don't remember which one.
I think it was Atlantis. I think it was Atlantis, the one that we saw, but I don't necessarily remember.
It doesn't matter. The point is that I heard that and I said, "Hey, Cape Canaveral. How close are we from Cape Canaveral?"
We drove everywhere, so it's not that far.
And I thought, remember, you were a teenager or thereabout. I said, "Hey, you guys go to bed early. Tomorrow we're gonna get up.
Launch is freaking early
because I want to go see the launch." And I try to wake you guys up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and nobody.
Jerry Lehane says the Challenger, that's the one that blew up. There were 5 different space shuttles, and so the one we saw wasn't necessarily the Challenger, and I'm thinking it wasn't. I'm thinking it was the Atlantis or something like that, but it wasn't the Challenger.
The way we can come up with it, the name, is finding out exactly what year was that.
Oh, it might have been in Columbia.
Columbia.
Oh, no, Columbia? I thought the Challenger blew up. Sorry, Jerry Lehane saying the Columbia in 86.
Anyway, I got so pissed off at you guys because you didn't get up and you didn't get up and you didn't get up. By the time you guys got up, it was too late to make the Cape Canaveral. So I was so pissed. And then I heard on the news.
You were pissed.
That the takeoff was postponed because of bad weather. So I said, "Hey, you son of a bitches, you're going to go to bed at 8 o'clock.
You got a second chance. We're going to make this freaking happen. We're watching that damn thing take off."
And that's your father's stubbornness, you know? And I thought, you son of a bitches.
You had a vision. You wanted something and you wanted to make it happen. You always did that.
I remember that link. I still have that Lincoln 79. I still have it on my possession, huh? That we drove to Cape Canaveral, and tell the story to your friends how we passed all these people on the side of the road, and your mother kept saying, "Where are you going? Where are you going?
Pull over! Everybody else is pulling over," and you said no.
No, I keep on going, and then we came to the military grounds. And all the guys in front of me were moving along, getting into the base. And then the guard came up to the car He looked at the window and says, "Come on, come on." He waved us on.
And mom was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He said, "Hey, he said go on, so let's go on."
We're gonna get arrested. You stop. What are you
I
doing?
remember that argument. Holy shit. There were 3 different checkpoints we went through. The guys kept waving us through, and mom kept getting even more nervous time and time and time again. And then there was one point to where the guy just waved us over, and you said, "Okay, this is it. We can't go any further because it's park and get out of here so that nobody, knows where we were. Just, find the parking spot and let's leave."
And you found out because we had a little sticker from the apartment that we were staying at that looked just like the
A sticker that was the color of the base on that day. It was a coincidence.
military people had the same color sticker, and
because it was a military launch. Everything was extremely distant, but we were able to get within 3 miles of it. How do I know? Because there was a military vet that was there with an old telephoto lens on his camera.
Where's Michael? Where's Michael? And Michael's already talking to an old guy with a huge telescope. And I thought, what the hell are you doing, Mike? He said, oh, he loaned it to me. He told me I could look. He's a military guy. He's going to let me look at the lounge from a big old scope. I said, you son of a, let me look at it.
I could see the windows, and I could almost see the pilots, the helmet of the pilots, shining beyond the windows. That was how close.
The astronauts.
You're right, the astronauts. It was a space shuttle after all. But the thing that impressed me is that, yes, I had this telephoto lens and I could actually zoom out and get a larger thing. And when that thing, it was completely covered up in smoke and I couldn't see a thing. And then all of a sudden just, but the speed of it, I couldn't follow it. I had to actually pull away, see where it was, and then look with the camera to actually be able to see it. It moves so freaking fast. There's no way I could have followed it with the camera. It just didn't. I had to look away perspective to be able to find it again. That was an impressive and an incredible moment that I will never forget. That's all thanks to you. And after that, we've got this. Dad, read this to remember what happened and why. The one that we watched was Discovery. Jerry Lehane is absolutely true, is absolutely correct. And the Challenger was the one that blew up. It did, part of it went over Cali. It actually went over 5 states, if I'm not mistaken, because the parts of it blew off into lots of states. I watched that in 1986 because there was a teacher that was supposed to have class from space. But this one on reentry, no, actually, this was the other one. On reentry is because it blew off the O-ring, actually blew off the piece of styrofoam that knocked off the protective shielding. And so when it came into reentry, it broke apart. What Jeff's saying here. And I remember when I was studying, when I went up to it was in Houston.
You must have been 14 years old, thereabout.
Yeah. Krista McAuliffe was the teacher that was going to give the classes, and our class was actually going to be showing her classes. But that was the first one, not the one that happened on reentry. That one that happened on reentry was later. And that was when I went to Houston. I actually visited NASA, and one of the technicians actually showed me one of those cubes, one of those insulation cubes, and they cover it up with the metal. But the thing that really absorbed it is that cube underneath, and they would put it in an oven for 500 degrees for like 2.5 hours. I mean, it got red hot, and you could actually pick it up by the corners because it was able to refract or concentrate that heat in places that were somewhere else. And so those things were meant to really absorb huge amounts of heat. But what I found out when I was there, that it's not this big sheet that they put on there. There are these cubes They glue on one by one. And so one of those, the glue fell off because the styrofoam hit it at high fucking speed. And 6 or 8 people died because of that. And something happened to Dad. So yeah, the tiles came out. The ceramic tiles were those were actually, yeah, ceramic tiles, but they also have a sheet over the top of it before the ceramic tiles. So that's the black part. The ceramic tiles are actually white, which I thought was foam underneath. But that's what actually absorbed the heat. That's what I learned when I was over there at NASA. So that was absolutely fantastic. Lots of All right. Columbia was 2003. Challenger was 86. Thank you very much. Columbia was the re-entry. Challenger was the blowing up on. The Challenger was the O-ring that there was a cold night before launch, and the O-ring was still kind of frozen. So it didn't actually make the seal, and that's why everything blew apart before they actually made it there. Columbia was because an old piece of styrofoam from the structure came off and hit it at that huge speed, knocking off one of the ceramic tiles, and the rest is history. So yeah, things are okay. Hold on. I need to ask if he fell off. So there might have been a problem. Okay, so he has not received that message. So my dad dropped off because his battery died on the phone on something else. So this has been an hour and 15 minutes. Yes, it was an awful mistake, calculations, but also lack of maintenance. Lots of things. The cold, that was the O-ring. The maintenance was a problem with Columbia later on. Yeah, lots of different rabbit holes. If you guys are still awake and wanting to go down this, we can go down all these kinds of rabbit holes. But for right now, I would actually like to reserve this to being the inaugural episode of a series that I want to start with me and my dad. Yes, Jerry, like you said before, my dad has a lot of stories to tell, as do I. But his are a lot more fun and interesting than mine because his are real. Mine are about things that I read or studied or found out or looked up or whatever. Did you know kind of stuff. My dad's stuff is things that he actually did. Surviving the difficulties and overcoming odds and obstacles and just being the dragon that he is. It's the inspiration for the book of creating your destiny and building your way towards it by seeing the steps. So thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you very much, Mud Rabbit. I appreciate it. There will be more of these, I promise you. Not on Thursdays. This is Jacob's night, but I was inspired tonight to start this. I'm thinking Saturdays or sometime that I can set things up with my dad to make this. But my ultimate objective was him is to get global news and economics and everything else. But his stories are really treating on all of that and the things that we can do to be able to withstand the times that are coming. Because I'm thinking Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome personally. But anyway, hopefully things won't get that bad. And so thank you, Mud Rabbit. Good night. Good night, Jerry. Thank you very much. Good night, John Boy. It's been a pleasure. Love you all. Good night. And as our initiating friend, Mr. Aaron Moriarty always says, peace in.